What I've been doing is I've been very critical of Delta because I didn't want to be on the hype train to say like, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing to ever come out, the greatest game to ever exist. Obviously, there was going to be some flaws, and the game isn't even out yet, but the pre-release reviews are bringing out some of the worst takes about MGS I have ever fucking seen, to the point where like I have legitimately almost crashed out over it. Like, it all started with this here. Metal Gear Solid Delta is really a showcase of why Kojima was needed as a touch here. There is just no way he would allow this game to run at 720 to 1080p at 40 FPS on PS5. He legit got MGS5 to run at 60 FPS with his team on the base PS4. I have a lot of criticisms towards Delta, and that's fine. Like, I'm not saying that I've never said that the game has been like good or perfect, but like, I'm not about to stand for Fox engine glazing from people that have no idea how game engines work, let alone why MGS5 was actually able to run at such a good frame rate. And it doesn't stop there, because like it just keeps going, because then you get like stuff like this. Already has a great looking and running game engine for a Metal Gear game, chooses to use Unreal Engine 5 instead. I'm not gonna skirt the criticism that the game has like optimization issues. It clearly does, but I'm not about to like go and say, oh, the Fox engine would have been better. That's when I start to go like, you hold your fucking horses, bro. Let's not go crazy. You can criticize the game and hate Unreal Engine all the fuck you want, but the moment you start glazing the Fox engine, I'm gonna have to shut you up, because that is just false. Because saying that MGS5 ran at 60 FPS on PS4 when it's a PS3 game, it's a bad faith argument. That's like saying like, oh, well, you know, Metal Gear Solid Delta runs at 60 FPS on the PS6. They're a generation behind, but people seem to forget that MGS5 is a PS3 game, but because it came out at the tail end of the PS3 era, they think it's a PS4 game. It's not. It was a cross-generation game, and that is a huge difference. The game should run at 60 FPS on next-gen consoles. Like, that was the whole point. And yet it still ran at 30 FPS or lower on PS3. MGS5 having good performance wasn't because of the Fox engine either. That's why it's a weird argument to bring up. MGS games run as good as they do not because of the engine that they're on. It's because of the team behind it are fucking wizards. And most of those guys left with Kojima, and that's why Death Stranding right now is a marvel of a fucking game. The developers themselves have said that it is a nightmare to develop on the Fox engine. That's not me saying it because I don't like the Fox engine. They themselves have said that it is not worth developing on that engine. That's why they stopped using it. That's how they found that out with Survive. And they were able to make it work at the end of Survive's like life cycle, but notoriously, the Fox engine is a nightmare. It is not a good engine to work with. That's why it sounds like I'm going the other way, because I am willing to say that the Fox engine wasn't the reason MGS5 was good. Like, people love to attribute that to the engine itself because, you know, it's MGS's original engine. No, the reason that game ended up being good was in spite of its fucking engine. And even then, the reason MGS5 is able to, one, look as good as it does, and two, run as good as it does, is because it's still a PS3 game and it has all the visible signs of it. And that is, all the models are extremely low quality. The textures are really high quality, but if you actually look at the models, you can see the edges. Like, they have no less poly count than the MGS4 models did. Second, they can't have that many enemies on screen. That's hard-coded into the engine. I don't know the exact number anymore. I want to say like 12 enemies, like somewhere around there. Any additional enemy on screen just doesn't render, and that's like hard-coded in. You can't change that, even with mods. And this one was the one that pissed me off the most, because it's using ground zeros. Anybody using ground zeros as an example of, look at what Kojima was able to do a few years ago on a different platform. Like, even MGS5 couldn't live up to whatever ground zeros presented. Kojima is way over ambitious, and it's a very small game condensed to one small area. That's like me going into MGS Delta, going into the one map that runs at 60 FPS and just saying that the game is perfect, it has no flaws. And again, PS3 game, by the way, it looks great when it got to PS4 and PC regardless, right? But let's not forget that this was not developed for that generation. generation. It is a game that is extremely held back because it was developed for PS3 in mind. The game itself could not do any more than what was supposed to be available for PS3. An impressive thing. Like I said, MGS games are a miracle that they work. Fucking MGS4 on PS3 ran at 20, and that was Kojima. That was Kojima pushing the limits of the PS3. That's why I get so annoyed when people start looking at MGS5 going like, look at that, they should have been using the Fox engine. Look at how good MGS5 was able to run. When they kind of forget, MGS5 should run at 60 FPS. Imagine if it didn't, because this game should not work. It is impressive as fuck that it does, but it's not because of the engine. It is in spite of the engine that it's actually running good. In spite of its hardware limitations, in spite of its engine being a chaotic mess to work on, this game is somehow able to be as good as it is. And even then, if you're a hardcore MGS person like me, you'd probably nowadays be like, MGS5 kind of sucks. Ground Zeroes is a better gameplay wise for MGS5 than MGS5 ended up being. It made it seem like a way better idea than it ended up being. And that's kind of my thoughts on it. I was asked before, like, what do I think about the performance issues in Delta and all the other issues related to the game, right? I initially was like, yeah, the performance is bad, but the stuff that's been happening now was that people were suddenly trying to talk about MGS5, saying like, oh, look how much better MGS5 looks compared to this game. And part of me was like, I don't like that we're doing this, and I couldn't explain why. I was like, I thought it was understood that MGS5 was a kind of like an empty ass game. It's more to it than that. I ain't about to defend Delta by any means. This is something that I found that was very funny. So what do you guys remember was MGS5's biggest complaints when it came out? Do any of you remember? I want to test your guys' memory. Do you guys remember the common complaints? Too big. Performance issues? No, MGS5, unless it was PS3, didn't really suffer from too many performance issues. I don't remember performance issues. That's not where I'm going. Never played it nor seen it, so no clue. All right. You're thinking a little bit too broadly. There's specifics. There's very, very good specifics. Story? Yeah, but we're not talking about story. We're talking about like the game. We're talking about the game. Too big and I don't know. That's to my point right now. That's to my point right now. People kind of forgot what MGS5 was hit with when it came out. And it hit me as I was thinking about it. What happened after MGS5, right? We got Metal Gear Survive. What did Metal Gear Survive do that people wanted from MGS5, but they never got? That's just one thing. This is an easy one. The one thing Metal Gear Survive has that people wanted back. Metal Gear Survive added back the cure system, and people wanted that shit because MGS5 didn't have that. Why didn't MGS5 not have that? Because you had like the critical injury stuff that was like, he would take out like the little spray and instantly cure all of his injuries and stuff. People wanted the hunger system too. Yes. Now you're getting to what I want to say. There were other things with MGS5 too, like it had a really bad pop-in, for example. So while the game looked good, people were complaining that at a distance, you could see all the stuff popping in. Better camo system. That's another one. The camo system in MGS5 is incredibly simplified. There's no camo index and stuff like that. So now we're getting to the actual point that I'm gonna say. People complained that MGS5 was not MGS3. Are you seeing where I'm going with this now? We have come full circle. We have actually come full circle to where when MGS5 came out, people complained that it was not MGS3, and now MGS Delta comes out and people are complaining that it's not MGS5. I don't know how we got here, but we did, and there ain't no changing it now. I've made jokes about people having selective memory when it comes to this series, but it has never been more clear than this. It has never been more clear. People genuinely have selective memory when it comes to both MGS5 and the rest of the series. We are actually making like comparisons and trying to say that MGS5 was better when MGS5 came out. Said that, why isn't this like MGS3? Why isn't this more like MGS3? Why isn't this more like that? We have come full fucking circle, and I think that's a bit poetic. I'm like, even by today's standards, what MGS3 did as a game, it is not replicated on any other game. Like, you do not have the dense level of foliage, the variety of wildlife, the variety of enemies. Like, yeah, it's a linear and small game in terms of like area, but there's a lot going on in these maps. And that's just on the map itself. Snake himself has a lot of interwoven mechanics happening with the cure system and hunger and stamina. Like, there's a lot. So while it is small, it is densely packed, and that sort of continues to adds up the more detail you try to add into it. It is kind of wild that we've kind of gotten to this point where MGS5 came out and people wanted MGS3, and then now we got MGS3 and people want it to be more like MGS5. There are stuff that is happening within the gaming industry that to me is 50 times worse than the game's performance. The game's performance could be great, but then you have all the other stuff that's like happening in the game, like the monetization, the matchmaking, what have you. There's so much that is happening right now that like would hurt my experience more, that even the game running at 60 FPS wouldn't save it. All these things to me are the things I look for first, then I can look at the performance and be like, all right, maybe you guys should fix this game so that it actually runs good. If all that stuff is in there, I just don't play the game anyway. That's my line. Like, if you can complain about shit, at least be correct. I'm not about to do revisionist history on what MGS5 was. The rest I don't care. Criticize the remake all you want. I've been certainly doing it way before it came out, but I'm not about to use that as an excuse to go attack people.